Okay, so thank you everyone again for joining. We will go ahead and get started now. Again, my name is Danielle. We are going to get started with our webinar. So thank you everyone for joining us today. I just want to let you know that this webinar will be recorded so that if you miss anything or you'd like to go back and see the information again, you can come back and watch this. We'll make sure that everyone receives a link later on. We do have a question and answer session at the end. So at the beginning, we'll have speakers from our programs, and then the second half of the webinar will be a question and answer session. So there should be a Q&A box on your screens. If you have any questions or comments that you'd like to share with us, please type those comments in the Q&A box, and we will come back to your questions after the presentations. We have a great panel of speakers today. We have talks from the program directors for both pediatrics and medicine, from Professor Michael O'Neill, who is a pediatrician, and Dr. Danny Cherian, who is the director for our medicine program. We also have talks from our two clinical tutors, Dr. John Cavini and Dr. Oliver McIlvaney. They work with us and they tutor on both of our programs in medicine and pediatrics. And we also have with us today some of our current trainees, Dr. Sarah Bakari, Dr. Asma Miliani, and Dr. Ali Kassab. They'll be available to answer any questions that you'll have. And we also have some videos, some talks from Dr. Sarah Bakari and Dr. Asma Miliani. So to begin with the presentations, you'll hear from myself and my colleague Tamsha Tracy, who is the manager for the programs. Those will be the first two videos, and then you'll hear from the rest of our speakers after that. It's important to mention that we are still working from home in Ireland, so please note that we'll all have different backgrounds and you may hear some noises in the background. So I do want to apologize for that in advance if anything does come up. But thank you again for joining. We will get started. And again, any questions, please pop them in the Q&A session box below.
Hi everyone, my name is Tamsha Tracy and I manage the international training programs available through the Royal College of Physicians of Ireland. Firstly, I would just like to say Marhaban Bekum Hona, or as you would say in Ireland, Céad Míle Fáilte, which means 100,000 welcomes. I know you're all very busy and we really appreciate the time that you're taking out of your schedules to be with us here today. To begin, I'd like to give you a little bit of background information into Ireland. So as you may already know, Ireland is an island in Western Europe with a wealth of history and culture. We're a small country with just under 5 million people and a very mild climate. English is the spoken language here, although our native tongue Irish is still taught across schools around Ireland and spoken fluently in a select few areas. We're very accessible by air, with many direct flights to the Middle East, Europe and other geographies. And we are internationally recognised as a centre for excellence in postgraduate medical training. And as a society, we are known to be safe, stable and friendly. We have a very proud medical and scientific heritage, and many of the world's leading physicians and surgeons came from Ireland. And I'm sure you'll recognise the names of Boyle, Graves and Corrigan from your study so far. From a technology and life sciences point of view, Ireland is regarded internationally as a world leader, and today the world's top 5 software companies, along with 7 of the world's top 10 technology companies, have operations in Ireland. Our medtech sector has become one of the leading clusters for medical devices globally. Exports of medical devices and diagnostic products now represent 8% of Ireland's total merchandise exports. For example, pre-COVID, 50% of the ventilators used in acute hospitals worldwide were made in Ireland, and 33% of the world's contact lenses are made here. There are 40 FDA-approved pharma and biopharma plants operating in Ireland, and 7 of the biggest blockbuster drugs are manufactured here. All in all, we are the second largest exporter of medtech products in Europe, despite our relatively small size, with 12.6 billion in annual exports. So why is this important? First of all, because of the investment that we make in research, we enjoy a very strong research ethos across our medical schools, training bodies and at our clinical sites. And as such, doctors on our Irish training programs are exposed to research as a core part of their training. And again, because of the investment in research and innovation, We have retained some of the world's leading physicians across all specialties, enhancing our training opportunities and training environment, and ensuring that Ireland continues to be one of the leading centres for postgraduate medical training and education. To give you a little bit of background information on our college then, you may already be aware that we are the largest and oldest postgraduate medical training body in Ireland. Training here is divided by discipline, and at our RCPI we house 6 distinct training bodies responsible for delivering training in the specialties and subspecialties of medicine, paediatrics, obstetrics and gynecology, pathology, public health medicine, and occupational medicine. Our college was established in 1654, and today we offer not just postgraduate medical training, but specialist exams, professional competence schemes, continuing professional development programs, clinical leadership programs, research, and quality improvement and assurance programs. We are led by our president, Professor Mary Horgan, and we have approximately 13,000 trainees, members and fellows across the college, faculties and institutes. Prof. Horgan is an infectious diseases specialist, so as you can imagine, she's been kept very busy in recent times, but she is a huge supporter of our international programs, and she has trained a number of our clinical fellows in the area of infectious diseases in the past. As you may be aware, we have 2 national training programs of basic specialist training and higher specialist training, and 2 international programs of residency training and clinical fellowship training. Our national and international programs are very similar in terms of structure and content, but there are some key technical differences such as program duration. To give you some insight into our international programs then, to date we have 100 graduates across 34 specialties and subspecialties, and 71 current trainees in residency and clinical fellowship training. For those of you that are interested then, the breakdown by gender on our programs at the moment is 58% female and 42% male, and 5 of the Gulf countries are currently represented within our current trainee cohort. Our International Residency Training Programme offers hands-on clinical training to doctors who are post-internship. The programme is 3 years in duration, completed fully in Ireland, and is available across 2 specialties, Internal Medicine and Paediatrics. Both programmes are supported by a dedicated programme director and clinical tutor, as well as a dedicated programme coordinator. I know that you'll all be interested in the area of recognition of residency certification, so I just want to take a moment to address this. I'm going to speak a little bit about the background here, the certificates that we offer, and the categorization of certs for registration purposes. So, as many of you will know already, our residency programme was originally established as a joint programme with the Saudi Commission for Health Specialties, where 1 year of training was completed in Saudi, followed by 3 years of training completed in Ireland. However, this structure wasn't creating the additional capacity that the Saudi Commission had hoped for, because trainees were required to still complete that 1 year in Saudi. So they asked us to restructure the programme to 3 years, bearing in mind that the 4-year programme objectives would need to be delivered within the space of 3 years. So that's what we did. We restructured the programme, and it is now an independent 3-year programme available not just to Saudi nationals, but to doctors within the other countries that we partner with also. On successful completion of residency training, trainees will have achieved the membership exams, the MRCPI, in their chosen specialty of internal medicine or paediatrics, and will be awarded a certificate of achievement of residency training. Within the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia then, this is recognised as being fully equivalent to the certification of a doctor that has completed the National Residency Programme and associated board exams. Specifically, graduates would qualify for senior registrar grade after certification and for consultant grade after 3 years of experience without professional evaluation. So as you can see, this categorization applies specifically to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and other participating countries will have their own individual regulations around this. I'm going to hand over to Danielle now, who will take you through the structure of our residency programs, the supports available to trainees on these programs, and the recruitment and selection process for them. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to answering any questions that you have at the end of this session. Shukran.
Good afternoon, my name is Danielle and I am the team lead on the International Affairs team in RCPI. Today I'm going to talk you through the structure of our programmes, the support you can expect to receive while on the programmes, and a little bit about the recruitment and selection process. So the residency in internal medicine, the rotations for this programme are divided between secondary and tertiary hospitals, and you'll spend 18 months in a secondary hospital and 18 months in a tertiary hospital. The trainees must complete at least 3 out of 5 of the below medicine rotations. These include cardiology, endocrinology, gastroenterology, geriatric medicine, and respiratory. There's also an opportunity to do an elective rotation in your final 6 months. Additionally, as part of your programme, you are required to complete the MRCPI in full, which is part 1, 2, and the clinical. For the paediatrics programme, trainees are also divided between secondary and tertiary hospitals. You'll spend 8 months at a secondary care site, followed by 22 months in a tertiary care site, and the final 6 months is back in the original secondary care site. In total, you'll spend 14 months in general paediatrics and 22 months in subspecialty rotations. You can see at the bottom of the screen here is a sample of rotations for a paediatrics trainee. Now, these subspecialty areas do vary depending on the individual training needs and the site capacity. So for supporting our international trainees, there are a number of people who are here to support you. Each programme in medicine and paediatrics both have clinical and academic support through the programme director and the clinical tutor. The programme director is the person who governs the programmes overall. They design the programme, curriculum, structure of the rotations, and also the allocation of trainees. The programme director selects trainees for their programme, assists in the induction, and annually assesses each trainee at their end-of-year assessment. The clinical tutor is a dedicated clinical tutor to provide online tutorials on the MRCPI Part 1. Now, these online tutorials are generally for doctors who have been offered a place on the programme and are required to get the Part 1. They also provide online and in-person tutorials on the MRCPI Part 2, written and clinical for trainees who are already on the programme. The clinical tutor also supports the orientation of incoming and new trainees to the Irish healthcare system. We also offer relocation support to everyone coming to Ireland through our partners Castell Education. Castell Education provide free English language tutoring for anyone who is offered a position but does not yet have the OET or the IELTS exam. They also offer lots of support when it comes to relocation, which includes registration with the Irish Medical Council, visa applications, accommodation, education for family members, and day-to-day issues such as banking, mobile phones, health insurance, and car rental. There's obviously also lots of training support in the college. We have a team here which would include Louise Fogarty, who is the programme coordinator specifically for the residency programmes. Now, we provide advice and support from interview all the way through to graduation and so on. This includes relocation to Ireland help with registration and visa requirements, help with your programme requirements, help with membership exams, liaison with your training site, and progression through your programme. So the application process. The actual applications will open on the 27th of October and will then close on the 10th of November. The interviews we hope to have early in 2022 to start post in September 2022 through to January 2023. The application link will be live on the RCPI website on the 27th of October. Additionally, if you are interested to receive the link directly from us, you can get into contact with us here on the internationalaffairs@rcpi.ie email address. The recruitment and selection process. So initially, an online application is submitted by the candidate. We will then do an eligibility check within our team to make sure that you are eligible to join the programme. The programme director will then proceed to shortlist all of the applications. If you are successful in the shortlisting process, you will be either invited to interview or we'll let you know that you have not been successful in shortlisting. The interviews are all completed by RCPI, and then you'll be told after the interview whether you have been successful or unsuccessful in your interview. So who is eligible? Required on application. So when you apply for the programme, these are the things that we need to have up front. You must have completed your primary medical degree through English. You must have completed a structured internship programme. You must have provisional sponsorship by a government body, and you must have an appropriate level of clinical experience. In order to actually commence training in Ireland, we need you to have demonstrated level of English competency through the IELTS or the OET test. For IELTS, you need to have an overall score of at least 7 and no less than 6.5 in any of the areas. And for the OET, you must have a grade of B in all areas. You must also have confirmed sponsorship by your government body, and you must have achieved an additional exam. We have a list here of the additional exams that you can achieve. I won't go through all of them, but we do have more information of this on our website. But you must have one of these below exams in order to commence training in Ireland. This is for registration purposes with the Irish Medical Council. So what makes an application stand out? We like to see that your CV is well structured. The information on your CV and online application form is clear and comprehensive, which includes detailed overview of your education, training, and experience completed to date. Now, if you have any additional documents, we hope these will be attached. So this would include the English language, the OET, sponsorship documentations, anything like that. We also like to see that you have demonstrated interest within your selected specialty. So this may be through experience in that specialty or research that you have completed within that specialty. We hope that you have demonstrated experience in the areas of research, clinical audit, etc. And also if you have the MRCPI Part 1 or equivalent additional exam, as we went through on the previous slide, that would also make your application stand out significantly. Now again, we'd just like to tell you to not worry if you don't have experience in your specialty in research or if you don't have the additional exam yet. A well-structured, clear CV and application is the most important thing at this stage. So this is the team. You can contact any of us at any time with any questions you may have. I would just like to point out again that Louise Fogarty is the programme coordinator for the residency programmes. So please reach out to her or any of us if you have any questions or concerns. Thank you very much for your time. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us for this webinar. You're all very welcome here. My name is Dr. Danny Cherian, and I'm a consultant gastroenterologist at Beaumont Hospital in Dublin, Ireland. I'm an honorary senior lecturer at the Royal College of Surgeons in Ireland, and I'm also the clinical director for endoscopy services at Beaumont Hospital. My role within the RCPI is as director for the International Residency Training Programme. This exciting program has been developed to provide international trainees with world-class experience and training in general medicine. Our goal for the training program is to offer international candidates the same training experience as the Irish junior doctors. For example, study leave, lectures, on-call and clinical commitments will all be the same. We insist that the international trainee is an integral part of the medical team. In fact, we think it is critical for the success of the program. The ultimate goal of the training program is to offer candidates certification in general internal medicine from RCPI, as well as the membership of the RCPI by way of examination. This 3-part MRCPI exam is a requirement to complete the residency. The residency is a 3-year program following internship from your home country. 18 months will be spent in a general hospital and 18 months in a tertiary level academic center. All of the standard general medical rotations will be provided, including but not limited to cardiology, respiratory medicine, geriatric medicine, endocrinology, and gastroenterology. A core academic program will be in place at each training site. This will include journal clubs, case-based small group teaching, grand rounds, and multidisciplinary team meetings. These are an excellent venue to discuss complex medical patients. A trainee will have a named trainer for each post in the rotation. The trainer's role is to train, support, and to regularly assess the progress of the individual. The RCPI has an excellent track record of helping international trainees transition to their new home in Ireland. We are further developing clinical orientation programs to allow for new international doctors to acclimatize to Irish medicine and the various nuances that come from working within a new healthcare system. I do hope this has been informative, and I'd be delighted to take any further questions that you may have. I wish you all the very best in your medical careers. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Oliver McIlvany and I'm a pulmonary and critical care physician based here in Dublin. I'm also the lead clinical tutor for internal medicine at the Royal College of Physicians in Ireland. The International Residency Programme at RCPI presents an exciting opportunity for candidates to gain new perspectives and develop as physicians. My role with the programme involves providing education, training and mentorship to candidates throughout the country, with a particular focus on improving clinical performance and preparing candidates for the MRCPI clinical examinations. The qualification of MRCPI in general internal medicine shows potential employers in Ireland and abroad that you as candidates have advanced knowledge of general medicine. You can effectively take a patient's history, perform clinical examinations, and formulate investigation and management plans. The MRCPI in general internal medicine is accredited by the Medical Council of Ireland as the foremost knowledge-based assessment for internal medicine in this country. Successful completion of these examinations entitles the candidate to membership of the College of Physicians and eligibility for higher specialist training schemes, the final stage of training before independent clinical practice. In addition to scheduled in-person teaching, I conduct regular online tutorials, both interactive and didactic, covering all aspects of the MRCPI examinations, from clinical technique to study skills and examination logistics. In this new pandemic era, these sessions have proven invaluable to our students, and I'm sure that you will find them helpful also. At RCPI, we want you to feel as comfortable and as at home as possible, and are always willing to liaise with you to develop and deliver a teaching program that meets your own specific needs. Upon completion of your studies here, you'll be a better clinician, and you'll have the requisite tools to approach complex clinical problems with confidence, both here in Ireland and in your future endeavours elsewhere. I look forward to meeting you.
I'm Professor Michael O'Neill, Consultant Paediatrician at Mayo University Hospital, and currently I'm the Clinical Lead for the International Residency Training Programme in Paediatrics, which has been developed by the Royal College of Physicians of Ireland and supported by the Faculty of Paediatrics. The clinical component of this programme consists of 3 years of clinical experience. The first 9 months are spent in a hospital outside Dublin. During this period of time, the trainee will have their initial exposure to general paediatrics and will be able to adapt and immerse themselves in the Irish healthcare system, which will be a new experience. The following 21 months will be spent in Dublin. The first 18 months are divided into 6 3-month rotations, through which the trainee will rotate through various paediatric subspecialties, which will include, but are not limited to, neonatology, neurology, endocrinology, metabolic disease, cardiology, nephrology, respiratory medicine. Candidates with a specific interest can be accommodated for a rotation which may not be on this list. These rotations are essential if the goals and objectives of the curriculum of the programme are met. The last 9 months, if the trainee has successfully completed their membership, will be spent in a supervisory capacity. The first 3 months will be based in a Dublin hospital as a registrar, which will be equivalent to year 1 of the higher specialist training, and the last 6 months will be spent as a registrar at their base hospital where they had their initial immersion. The focus on this component of the programme is to enhance their decision-making skills, to consolidate their treatment plans, and to develop skills in supervisory capacity of junior trainees. This programme also has some unique features. There is a dedicated tutor, and this will be addressed in a subsequent part of this video. Trainees will also attend the paediatric basic specialist training days in Dublin, of which there are 8 per year. These programs consist of case-based discussion in the morning and seminars usually based on subspecialty areas of expertise in the afternoons. Each trainee will have a trainer who will be and a logbook which will be required to be completed as part of the training process. There will be informal evaluations on a 3-monthly basis, but a formal evaluation on a yearly basis. The standard to which the trainee will be assessed is the average Irish basic specialist trainee. This program also has a unique educational component where we have developed specific workshops to aid the decision-making of trainees, which will be built into the program. This is an exciting program where trainees will have the opportunity to work in a newer healthcare system in a country which is recognized to train pediatricians to a very high level. I would be pleased if you would engage with this program.
Hello, my name is John Coveney and I'm the Clinical Paediatric Tutor for the RCPI Paediatric International Residency Training Programme. I'm a Paediatric Specialist Registrar with a special interest in both paediatric emergency medicine and in medical education. I've completed training through the RCPI in Ireland and have passed the RCPI Paediatric membership examinations recently. My role in the programme is to help trainees prepare for the membership examinations and to prepare trainees for the clinical experience they will have in a new medical setting. The Paediatric RCPI membership examinations are divided into 3 exams. The Part 1 examination is an MCQ examination. It focuses on knowledge of basic science related to paediatric medicine, recognition of the well versus the unwell child, recognition and management of emergencies, diagnosis, and the use of diagnostic tests and the management of common problems. The Part 2A examination is an MCQ exam and is a short answer paper which focuses on the clinical applications of paediatric knowledge. Finally, the Part 2B examination is an OSCE format clinical exam. My work with trainees starts before they ever arrive in Ireland. When they enrol in the programme, I organise online teaches with a focus on preparing trainees for the MRCPI Part 1 examination. This includes weekly online tutorials using Zoom meetings and weekly online mock MCQ questions. I work with trainees to identify areas of knowledge where the trainee is strong and doesn't need much support, and other areas where the trainee may need more support, and we adjust our clinical teaching accordingly. When trainees arrive in Ireland, we continue with weekly tutorials, however our focus changes somewhat to focus on supporting with the transition to a new country and new healthcare system, as well as on focusing on Part 2A and Part 2B examinations. One of the potential challenges of the programme is relocating to a new healthcare system, where some aspects of how care is provided may be different. My role is to help trainees with that transition throughout our teaching to ensure that both before a trainee arrives in Ireland and when they arrive in Ireland, they are comfortable with this transition. When trainees arrive in Ireland, I am available both by phone, by email, or in person to meet and support trainees to ensure this transition is as smooth as possible. As trainees progress on to speciality training posts, I arrange tutorials to prepare them for the requirements of that subspecialty. The tutor role is a role that is a major asset to trainees on the Paediatric International Residency Training Programme. It provides them with support, both in terms of examination preparation and in terms of transitioning to a new healthcare system. I really enjoy working with doctors enrolled in the programme and supporting them at this very vital stage in their career. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Sarah Bukhari and I was invited today to answer a few questions that might be helpful to you. So the first question is about how did I hear about this program? So I actually heard about it through a friend. It was during my internship here in Saudi, and my co-intern showed me a poster in her phone about this international residency program. As she knew that I graduated from Ireland and I was interested in internal medicine programs. So yeah, I heard about this program through a friend. And why? Second question is, why did I choose this program? I would say I was in the same situations as most of you are in at the moment. It can be quite difficult to choose your pick which program you should consider. At that time, I wasn't quite sure. There was many different programs available in different countries and different different structures. So what I did is I basically gathered as much information as possible about each program that I was considering, and I did ask trainees in each program. For this program, it was quite difficult because we were the first batch, so there wasn't many to ask about their experience. However, what helped me is that I did my undergrads in Ireland, and I know a few people who were in the PhD, which is more or less similar to this program. So I asked them about how are they finding it, and what's their feedback about the program. I would say what attracted me the most in this program is that I've been in Ireland before and I know the healthcare system, so it's like I'm going back to a place that I know rather than going to somewhere very new to me. So yeah, and also the structure of the program was very clear. In my case, it was a 4-year program, 1 year in Saudi, 3 years in Ireland. And in the poster, they have like columns in each year, what to expect and what each year would be involving. So it looked a clear program to me, and yeah, that's why I chose it. So yeah, the fourth question here is about the experience with Castle. So after you get your acceptance from RCPI, the amount of paperwork that come afterward can be quite challenging and tiring. But RCPI have very nice additions. They are linked with Castle Educations, which is an institute who will take care of your all mandatory registrations, fees application, and as well as like any small things, airport transportations, and the most important will be they help you with finding accommodations, which can be quite challenging and difficult, but they were very helpful, and I'm sure they will take care of you when you reach that stage. And the last question is here about how I'm finding the training so far. So currently I am in my I am at the end of my 2nd year. My experience has been excellent so far. I've been in 2 different hospitals, and I've rotated into too many in different subspecialties, and that's actually what I like about this program. It's 3 years, so you get to rotate into more or less most of the medical subspecialties, which will help you in deciding which specialty you want to take after your training, and it's also widening your horizons about like different medical fields and different patient cohorts. And so yeah, that's my experience so far, and I wish you all the best.
Hi, my name is Ismat Midiani, and I'm one of the trainees on the Pediatric Joint Training Programme between Saudi Arabia and Ireland. I had chosen to apply for this programme as my first option for many reasons, mostly because I was looking for a unique experience in an exciting adventure while still fulfilling excellent educational requirements that would meet high international standards. Ireland was even more so ideal due to its reputation for friendliness and having one of the most welcoming cultures. It's also an extremely beautiful and charming island that's much closer to home. I'm very happy that nearly 2 years into the programme, I am still very proud and grateful to have chosen Ireland and the joint programme for my residency training. I have had incredible support from RCPI and their partners throughout every step of the way to make the transition and my experience as smooth, enjoyable, and efficient as possible. It's a wonderful opportunity. Not without its challenges, but definitely worth it. And I can, with good conscience, recommend it as an excellent programme to all my junior colleagues who are considering training abroad.
Okay, so thank you everyone again for joining us today. I'd just like to invite our panelists to turn their cameras on. Great. So on the panel today, we have Louise Fogarty, who is the coordinator for the residency programs at the college here. We have Dr. Ali Kassab, who is currently on our program in internal medicine. We have Dr. Oliver McIlvaney, who is the clinical tutor for our medicine programs. We have Dr. Asma Al-Milyani, who is a residency trainee in pediatrics, and Professor Michael O'Neill, who is the clinical director for the pediatrics programs. So I think what we'll start doing, I'm going to go through some of the questions that we're getting in. And again, if you have any questions you'd like any of our panelists to answer, please pop them in the Q&A box. The first question I'd like to answer, we have one here, which is having the IELTS at time of application important? So I'm going to hand that question to Louise to answer.
Thanks, Danielle, and hello to everyone, and thanks for joining today. Hopefully I might be meeting you soon. The IELTS is not mandatory at the time of application. We allow about 4 or 5 months for trainees to gather their requirements. But if you do have the IELTS at applying, then certainly put it in the application and let us know.
Great, thanks, Louise. The next question that just came in is someone asked what we mean by provisional sponsorship, and they said that some sponsors require acceptance for a financial guarantee. So what we mean by provisional sponsorship is a letter that states that you have been approved for sponsorship by your sponsor. We do understand that final sponsorship may not be given until you have the final offer and we go forward with progression. So we don't need the financial guarantee, but just a letter stating that you will be sponsored for your program. So I might move on. I have a couple of questions for Professor O'Neill, if that's okay. So
okay, yes.
So the first one is approaches to care differ in different countries, including the procedural skills required of clinical team members and reporting structures. Could you tell us what kind of differences that you have noticed between residency training in the Gulf and the training in Ireland, and that you think will be useful for doctors to know before coming here?
Okay, that's a tough question and a good question. I guess the first thing I would say to you, to the person who has asked that question, is that in pediatrics, it's going to be different from internal medicine, but in pediatrics, we don't really have a hierarchical structure. So the consultant, the registrar, SHO, that relationship is actually very, very close. And what I've noticed is for people who come abroad, they're not used to that, shall we say, non-hierarchical structure. The other thing in pediatrics in the initial 8 months or 9 months of general pediatric training is the need to develop competencies in clinical skills, but also procedural skills. So cannulation, lumbar punctures, doing pulmonary function tests. So we've got a list of skills that we ask people to achieve. And I think what we have noticed is that trainees coming from abroad don't have those skills to the level that our local trainees would actually have them. And the other thing I would say is that general pediatrics in the initial phase is very much a call-driven experiential approach. And we've noticed is that from abroad, junior trainees see call as somewhat of a burden, but for us, it's integral to developing that skill set in the unselected, undifferentiated pediatric patient, who is the challenge that we all have to become competent at. So.
Thank you.
I might just add that adapting to our system is something we really focus in on to a high degree. So we understand people are in transition, and we're acutely aware of that, and we try to develop a mentoring system with them when they come to us as well. So, okay.
Thank you. And the other question I'd like to ask you is, what do you see as being the strengths of the residency program in Ireland in paediatrics?
Well, there are several strengths, but I think the key one for us is that we understand what the trainee will actually need to become a proficient, competent pediatrician or in the first 3 years. So we do feel that engaging with the trainee when they're at home in Saudi Arabia with the tutoring program that John has alluded to prepares them for the exam. We also feel that incorporating them into our BST training program through the study days, their logbook, and treating them exactly like the standard pediatric trainee really makes a difference for them. I think the other strength is that compared to our standard trainee, the international trainees will get 5 3-month rotations in subspecialty pediatrics. And then if they're successful in their exams, they have 9 months at this SPR year 1 level, which really starts to give them decision-making ability, accountability, supervisory skills for the junior trainees as well. And that actually is empowering for them, because then they know, I have achieved this skill set. And I do think as we look at our curriculum, we are focused on the acquisition of skills and competencies as opposed to just background knowledge. So there's a big focus on the ability to apply the knowledge to the clinical situation. And I think that is a major focus and a major strength for this particular program. Okay.
Thank you very much. I have a couple of questions here for Dr. McElvaney, if that's okay. So the first one is, just so everyone else knows, the tutor role is new for our residency program. So Dr. McElvaney is our first tutor in medicine. I'd just like to ask you what you think as the key advantages are of having this resource available for our trainees.
Well, I suppose it depends on which trainees you're asking, but in terms of the more general themes, I suppose doing medicine in another country can be a challenging experience, particularly if it's your first time outside of your parent country, and doing foreign examinations even more so. So one of the cornerstones of the program is not only gaining clinical proficiency, but also attaining passing grades in the RCPI examinations, and in particular the Part 3, which is a clinical examination, is highly specialized and can be quite nuanced as well for the first-time candidate. We would feel that one of the big advantages of the tutor role is to be able to redirect candidates to material that is relevant with respect not only to their clinical development, but their examination preparation. So the last thing that we would like to see would be a motivated, dedicated candidate working very hard, but studying the wrong things and going off, albeit in a self-directed manner, in the wrong direction. In addition to being able to point people in the right direction, we can also provide coaching on areas that candidates may not have access to otherwise. So, for example, I work in Beaumont Hospital as a pulmonary and critical care physician. Here we would have neurosurgery on site, and with that, a lot of, say, the pituitary lesions and panhypopituitarism, those sorts of things. We have cystic fibrosis on site here, we have renal transplant. These are services and areas that are highly represented on clinical examinations, but that candidates in more peripheral hospitals may not necessarily have access to. So that's another aspect of the program that can be beneficial to candidates and they find quite useful. In addition to that, we also encourage people to attend to observe the standard of their colleagues, so as that they can kind of pattern themselves against other individuals who will be sitting the same examinations, just to gauge what kind of a standard they're at. And then finally, and I think this is potentially the most important thing, very often candidates will want to make a good impression with some of their colleagues in their hospitals that they're attached to, and they can sometimes be reluctant or reticent to make mistakes openly or to ask questions openly. So this service provides a no pressure environment for candidates to ask questions that they might otherwise be a little bit shy about asking. So I think that's a really important thing too.
Great. Thank you. And the other question here is, if there was a scenario where a trainee was on site and they encountered a difficult scenario that they would like advice on, could they approach you for that kind of query?
They certainly can, within reason. This would not necessarily be intended to be a substitute for a candidate's consultant mentors, for example, or some of their senior team members. It's not an on-call service, so contacting your senior colleagues on site takes precedence, obviously, at times of emergency and so forth. However, we find that debriefing situations during the tutorial sessions can be something that trainees have found helpful, just to troubleshoot certain things that may have arisen in, say, the previous week on service, that some trainees may wish to get some clarity on for the purpose of guiding future management. So certainly that's something that is available. The tutors here can be contacted via email, but generally speaking, we tend to find that these things are best dealt with in the interactive setting during the group tutorials.
Thank you. And I guess the final question I have here for you, could you give us a bit more information on the structure of your tutorials that you're holding at the moment?
Sure. So we have a series of different types of format. We tend to mix things, generally speaking, between didactic lectures These will be sometimes slide-based and sometimes just a conversational kind of an overview of certain conditions that we think are particularly important, not just from the point of view of things you'll see very frequently whilst on call in clinical practice in Ireland, but also from the point of view of clinical examinations. And then we'll have interactive sessions whereby there will be a back and forth between candidates and myself, where we might say ask questions, discuss certain concepts, and get a feel for people's views or opinions or the struggles or challenges that they're encountering when dealing with those sorts of scenarios. The other thing that we try to do as well, and again, without being overly exam focused, we do try to give some kind of insight into the exam technique that may be of benefit to candidates approaching the MRCPI examinations. As I said, these can be quite nuanced examinations for the first-time candidate. And there are even certain things like the language used and the phrasing of certain questions or instructions that candidates may need to get some clarity on in advance of approaching those examinations. So the sessions can be useful from that perspective also.
Thank you very much. So the next question I have is for Dr. Ali, who is one of our current trainees on the Internal Medicine Programme. So this kind of surrounds your experience of moving to Ireland. So we understand that moving to Ireland would have been quite a challenging experience. Did you have support available to you during that move, and could you tell us a bit more about that?
Thanks, Daniel, and thanks to everyone for inviting me today to this webinar. Well, when I came into Ireland, I had a couple of difficulties. With that being said, I've been in Ireland and I did my undergrad. However, I'm moving into a new system. It has its own challenges, and we have to accept that. And to be honest, I've had multi-level of support. And to begin with, Castle Education supported me in terms of housing and having the registration for the police, to have my card and my immigration card, and to open a bank account. So basic things like that, it would make a great help and relieving factors for us as doctors to have those sides being dealt with. And that from the perspective of that kind of settling back into Ireland. The other part is actually the college. So college was there for me when I needed, and they came into Cork actually. So Cork, for people who doesn't know Ireland, is kind of 4 hours drive from Dublin. And the college came every 6 months to come and have a check with all the trainees in the international program here in Cork, and to check if they're doing okay and what sort of things they needed and to help with that. The other part that I found is very, very useful settling down was the job description. So when I came in, I went into geriatric rotation. And during that time, my trainer sat down with me, and I had the chance to go over the things that expected from us as an SHO and doctors who are in training. So the job description. So I found that very, very useful in terms of what is expected from us as doctors in that situation, and what sort of the implementation that we can do in the first week and the second week. So I had to have to schedule some of my co-SHOs to do cannulation and to make sure that I'm inserting IV lines, inserting NG tubes, and all of those skills, they were part of my job and I needed them. And what happened that time is they had to sit down with me and to make sure that I have those skills mastered before I kind of do them alone. So that was very, very useful to know what are the expectations from you. And that happens and that would be the same if you go to neurology, when you do a lumbar puncture, and if you go to different rotations. So that's one of the great things.
Thank you for that.
The other important part of it was the team. So the team always will help you with anything that you need. So don't be afraid to ask.
Thank you. And there's another question for you here. So I know that you're in your third year of training. I mentioned in the PowerPoint that you'd have an opportunity to focus on an area that you're very interested in. Have you had the chance to do that in your training?
Again, that's one of the excellent thing about this training. So when I came into Ireland, I had the chance to have my core training first done in the first 2 years. So they involved the 5 main rotations. However, the college had helped me to facilitate the things that I wanted to do in the fellowship. So I wanted to do cardiology, and the college had helped me into finding a rotation in a place that I wanted to do. So at the moment, I'm doing 6 to 8 months of cardiology with the core rotation, and the 6 months of my interest in cardiology as a registrar level. And the other thing that I had help with is to perform research and do audits and try to publish papers, and shadowing other SPRs who are currently in the specialty training with the RCPI, and attending very intensive calls and going to tertiary centers and learn very specialized skills such as performing an echo and TOE. So all of those important factors being facilitated by the college for me as a trainee in the international program.
Thank you very much for that. So I have a couple of questions here for Dr. Asma also, who is our trainee on the pediatrics program. So the first one, again, just similar to Dr. Ali, how did you find the process of moving to Ireland, and did you have support throughout that process?
Sorry, can you repeat that, please?
Oh, sorry, this is for Dr. Asma.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
Thanks for inviting me to answer the questions and to speak at this webinar. It's a pleasure. So to answer your question, yes, it was a bit more challenging than I had anticipated when I first came, and I think that may have to do a bit more with the fact that I've never really have lived anywhere else apart from home. And Ireland was my first experience to kind of live independently and in a different country apart from Saudi Arabia. So it was a bit difficult into kind of like adjusting, but I think that wasn't as difficult as it could have been had it been anywhere else. I've had incredible amount of support from RCPI and from Castle Education. I've actually had my brother, who has lived abroad for over 10 years in different countries between the US and Europe, and he had kept constantly commenting on how my experience is hundreds of times better than his because of the support that the Castle Education has offered, especially with kind of like arranging transport from the airport and kind of like helping me find a home and arranging for a bank setup, a bank account setup, and all sorts of things. And even with the medical registration and kind of finding all the prerequisites. So it has been incredibly helpful and useful. And I don't think I would have known how to figure half of those things out without them. RCPI has also been extremely helpful and integral into kind of helping me adapt within Ireland and within the system, the social and the cultural aspects of things. Everyone there was very friendly, and that kind of helped put me at ease and a bit more comfortable in trying to kind of settle in. And I think that's extremely integral. So all in all, to kind of sum up the experience, I think I was very lucky and very, very fortunate, not only to kind of have come to Ireland of all the countries that were available, but to also kind of have the privilege and the fortune of the services that were provided to me either by RCPI or by Castle Education. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, it does. Thank you very much. I actually have another question for you here, just about the membership exam. So I know that you're one of the fortunate few who passed everything first go. So would you have any advice or, ideas for people prepping for the exam right now, for the Part 1 exam?
Yes, well, half of it is to kind of reiterate what Prof. O'Neill has said. I think a big and a huge part of helping me to pass the exams and to kind of do well on them was that I tried to put myself in the mindset that I was going to go through the same experience as all the Irish trainees, that I will try not to kind of set myself apart or kind of want to be treated differently. I tried as much as I can to kind of put the same expectations as they would put for themselves, that I would put them for myself, and to kind of try to catch up, even though technically I started at a much more junior experience level. But I think my colleagues were kind of very helpful in helping me catch up with skill sets that were necessary. And so the most important part from that point of view is to try as much as you can to kind of engage in on-calls, because most of what you will see are in your on-call is kind of the most important things that you would need to know in your practice, and equally are the high yield points in many of the exam questions. Number two would be kind of to do the question banks like the PASS test and the BMJ on examination. And very importantly on that note is to not kind of expect that these questions are going to recur or memorize them or anything like that, but to kind of take it in an approach that they mark for something similar to a curriculum or like a schedule or something like that, to kind of see what kind of questions they focus on, and then to go and read about that topic as a whole, because they will give you an idea about what kind of important high yield topics you would be expected to know at a membership level. And the thing is, the tutor, I was very, very lucky with my tutor. She was excellent. She helped me settle in, not even from a membership level, but even within the healthcare setting and my work life. They would kind of focus on on our areas of weaknesses, because both me and my colleague were both from the same kind of country. We're both from Saudi Arabia. We both had the same kind of strength and the same kind of weaknesses in many things. So she kind of would target or tailor the tutoring session according to our specific needs, which I found extremely helpful in adapting to the Irish medical healthcare system. So yeah.
Thank you very much for that. That's great.
Thank you. Yeah.
I have another question here for Professor O'Neill. So could you give us a bit more information about the academic side? So I know that there's courses and study days and research, that kind of thing.
So I guess for our standard BSc trainee, we have eight study days a year, as I previously mentioned. But for the to problem solve the special areas, we use the tutor to, as Asma said, prepare for the part 1 and the part 2. But within your base hospital, then you also have the academic events that are happening there. So for example, if you're in Temple Street or Crumlin, you have the academic events that are happening there as well. And then there's also the post-call teaching. So in my view, as I would see things, the post-call take round is the most important round of the week. So you're actually sharpening your clinical skills and understanding how decisions are arrived at and why certain courses of actions are taken. So that is really where it is. So it's sort of what I would say experiential and formal academic training. And then we haven't been able to do them, what we would call boot camps, which COVID has really prevented us. But these are actually slightly different in that we take a topic and we actually unlock how you take that history, how you come to diagnosis. And hopefully with COVID going into abeyance, we'll be able to add that into the package. So compared to the average BSc though, basic specialist trainee, people in the international program would have extra access to resources, for example, the tutor. And as Asma will be able to say, and it may not be highlighted as much, but for us, after 2 years of training, most of our BScs hope to get onto the HST, but not all of them do. So, you know, the pass rate in exams this time round for the part 2 was, say, 40%. It's not that high, whereas Asma got it the straight run through. So, but once you have that exam, then we can move you from the basic specialist trainee into the HST component for 9 months. And Asma will be spending 3 months as a specialist registrar in neonatology, and then going back to her base hospital in Limerick to do 6 months as a general pediatric registrar, but functioning as an SPR in that level. So I don't know if that quite answers it, but what I would say is that teaching, you know, giving tutorials and stuff like that, unless it's enacted in real time, there's very little value in that. So, you know, attending lectures and stuff like that, it's seeing the patient and applying the knowledge. That's really what we're at. We call that enaction, E-N-A-C-T-I-O-N, as opposed to I-N-A-C-T-I-O-N. So that's really what we do. But what I would say about the training program is that after 3 years, you could go and say, I have a good grounding in pediatrics. I would be as good as the Irish trainee. And that actually is a great compliment, because you have reached a skill set. And what we notice is that some people come to us and who do electives with us, say in my particular hospital, people come and they do electives and their book knowledge is great, but they can't apply it. And therein lies the problem. So I know everything, but I can't apply it. And we're really big on the application of knowledge. So I don't know if that actually answers the question, but maybe Asma might like add to it, or because you've actually experienced the bit. So
I think you've kind of answered it very well there.
Okay, so just while we have you, Professor O'Neill, could you give us a bit more information about on-call? Would trainees be required to participate?
Actually, that's a very interesting question. And I guess what I would say is that I'm predominantly North American trained, so I would have to say that I come with certain biases. But in pediatrics, on-call is the most important thing that you do. And while your work might be 9 to 5, trainees who come here, we pay for people doing call because when you see a patient who's undifferentiated in acute pediatrics, that is your bread and butter. And it is you with the registrar that are the initial port of call to sort that out. And what it actually does is it allows you in a semi-stressful situation to say, I've got to make a diagnosis, I've got to make an assessment, I've got to stabilize the child, I'm in charge, and I am accountable to the parent, the child, and obviously the consultant the next morning and stuff like that. And that as a building block really empowers you and enhances your clinical problem solving. It also allows you to see how children transition from illness to wellness. And when you're under pressure with beds and all that sort of stuff, knowing that transition is really important, because if a child does not transition as you had anticipated, you know there's a deterioration. You've seen it before, and now you can put in place rescue measures for that child. So while people think, oh, I don't like call at an appropriate frequency makes you clinically astute. And I think that is something that people don't realize. I always give this example is that I'd love to play the piano. So I went to the teacher and she gave me a book and she said, read that. And I read the book and I knew it all. And then she said, come and play for me. But I'd never practiced on the piano, so I couldn't play. And what call is, it allows you to play and give you that skill set that in the years to come will make you a really good and sharp pediatrician. That's what we're looking for. And having done that, you know, in the initial years, then you can move into your subspecialty and say, I want to become a pediatric neurologist. But even there, you will do call to get that neurological skill set. And that's pivotal. So call is where it's all at, but an appropriate amount. So Asma, how much call do you do? We would say that at an SHO level, 1 in 7 to 1 in 8, 1 in 6 to 1 in 8. And the call is 16 hours from in the evening to the morning and stuff. So
thank you for that. I might ask this one to Dr. Ali. You've been here for quite a long time. I know that last 2 years almost has been, you know, not as usual with COVID, and things have really been affected by COVID. Has your training been affected by COVID, and how is your site managing that now?
Obviously, when COVID came in, the training was affected all over the country for internal medicine. But however, for me, so I was in neurology, and I was due to change to cardiology. And back then, there was a decision for all doctors who were in the BST to continue in their own rotation at that time. So it was only for a scale of 6 months during that time. So when I had to do neurology for an extra 3 months, that was compensated later by the college, gratefully. However, the other impact was the SHO teaching, and that was the main thing, and the post-take meetings with all of the disciplines. However, that is not a situation anymore. So the situation at the moment back to normal. The SHO teaching is back into place. Journal clubs and grand rounds are back to life, and all of the journal clubs and all of the intradepartmental meetings and all of the other outpatient departments is back to normal. So we are having the full exposure at the moment.
Things are starting to return back to normal now then. It's nice to hear.
Yes, yes.
So I have a couple of questions again I might answer. The first one is, someone is in the final stage of registration with the Medical Council already and working in Europe, and is it okay to apply without doing 1 year in Saudi Arabia? So this will be useful for everyone. It is a 3-year program now, and it's all completed within Ireland. So you're no longer required to do the first year in Saudi Arabia. You can do the full 3 years with us. So you'd be more than welcome to apply to start in Ireland straight away at the beginning of the program without doing any time in Saudi Arabia. The next question, someone asked about obstetrics and gynecology. Unfortunately, at the moment, we don't have the program set up in obstetrics and gynecology. We just have pediatrics and internal medicine. Hopefully that will change, and we will, advertise when we do have that program available. But for now, it's just pediatrics and internal medicine. Okay, and I think there's one more question about being a Bahraini national. You are more than welcome to apply from Bahrain. We take applications from the Gulf countries, so the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Bahrain, and Oman. And it would always be a 3-year program from now onwards. So I don't think there are any further questions. If anything pops up, we do have a copy of this list, so we can send out answers to people after the webinar if your question hasn't been answered by what we've already gone over. I'm not sure if anyone on the panel has anything further they'd like to add this afternoon.
No, I'm good. I would say to you is that having trained abroad predominantly myself, when you come back from abroad, you're different because you've different experiences, and that's what makes the difference when you go back home. So I think that's, so, in Ireland in pediatrics, there's a very strong safety culture, which you wouldn't really notice maybe at the BST level, but certainly at the HST, you start to understand the culture that drives the place and the concept of risk and safety. And then as you get more advanced, the need for research and stuff. So it is a progressive growth in pediatrics. So it's really worthwhile. And it's often good to start off when you're young rather than when you've done a few years. So start off post-internship, take the plunge and see where you go,
Thank you.
Okay. I think just one thing about internal medicine training here in Ireland, after doing a year in Saudi, the most important adding factor to me is the 3 months rotation. So in each rotation, instead of 4 weeks in Saudi, and that will give you a core knowledge into gastroenterology, neurology, geriatric, and you will have a flavor of everything that's going on by doing 3 months on that specific rotation. And to add to that, so the difference between the training here and in Saudi is we have the pleasure to go to outpatient department, to go to all of the ward rounds, and to be able to attend procedural levels as an SHO, to attend and to see and to perform if you have the skills to perform it. So it's fully hands-on, and there is nothing that you can do and achieve here, to be honest.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ali. Great, so I would like to thank everyone who joined, and really big thanks to all of our panel members for joining us this afternoon. Really appreciate your time, and hopefully we've answered all of your questions. If there is anything further, we will get back to you separately. I do have a list here of the questions. I think we've covered most of them, but we will get back to you separately if there's anything else that you need. Again, get us to contact us if you have any more questions. Louise and myself are always available to answer questions. So yeah, that's all we have this afternoon. So thank you again to everyone, and take care, everyone.
Okay. Thanks very much.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.